Hey guys, today I'm going to open up the Nexus Pro. I'll show you what's inside, perform some upgrades, and then I'll crony it and I'll end with another accuracy test. In my initial review of the Nexus Pro, I had some inconsistent velocities compared to my other blasters. But for something you can buy on the shelf at Walmart for $50, it performed above and beyond anything Nerf themselves have ever made. So I want to see if with some small amounts of modifications, whether I can make this shoot as good as a third-party offering such as Workers Prophecy or Jet Blaster's C2S. The first thing to do is remove the stock and loosen off the end cap, which is where you can normally hot swap the spring. Now remove the grip, which is held on by 4 screws, and under the grip is 1 further screw. Now just go around to every screw port and remove them all. You don't have to remove the foregrip though. And now for the most annoying part of any Dart Zone Pro Series blaster, the tabs. I found it easiest to press down on the back of the tab and try and push it under, rather than lifting the front of it up and over. Once you've got both of them undone, the two halves of the blaster will clamshell apart. I left the spring in just to give you an idea of how the blaster works, but this is a turf cedar spring, and usually you'd remove that before opening the blaster. And yes, I've already had this open to measure the cylinder air volume, which I wrote on there with a black marker. From the forward piston position to the cocked position measures at 58.5mm, and the inner diameter of the cylinder is 35.4mm. For comparison's sake, that's pretty close to but slightly smaller than a cedar cylinder, and just over half the volume of a Caliburn. Now I'm going to remove the plastic muzzle piece so I can get to the barrel. The barrel itself is not sealed into the plastic breech with any O-rings, threads or solvent, and it's not even a tight friction fit. It just very loosely sits in there. When a dart is loaded from the magazine into the breech, the dart doesn't actually enter the barrel until after it's fired. Instead, it loads into a tighter plastic part, which has a surprisingly good air seal with the dart. To improve the performance in mine, I'm going to replace the barrel entirely with this red one from Monkey Mods. It has a slightly tighter inner diameter of 13mm, which should give a better air seal with the darts. I won't be leaving it at this length though, because this is too long for such a small air volume. Instead, I've measured the perfect length to allow me to fit a Blastertech 16mm scar barrel flush against the muzzle. With a pipe cutter, I trimmed down the barrel and then tied it up with a deburring tool. Now, how you attach the barrel is up to you. Some of you will use different barrel materials with different outer diameters, but this one here will fit back in just like the stock barrel does. Personally, I'd aim to improve the air seal somehow. You could wrap some tape around the joint or something, but what I'll be doing here is using some 5-minute araldite. Just mix the two parts together thoroughly and spread some around the barrel, then push it in. I used the plastic muzzle piece as a guide to center the barrel while it's set, and I left the barrel standing upright for 16 hours to reach maximum strength. The next day, after the barrel had cured into the breech, I decided to cut down the muzzle piece to use as a stabilizer for centering the barrel. The flash hider part isn't needed for me anymore, because the Blastertech scar will be going there instead. Now, before I close this back up, there's one more thing to do. The Nexus Pro has 2 internal locks. One of them I think is actually useful, and the other I really hate. Let's start with a good one. When your piston is cocked, the grey bar at the top gets pressed by the catch, and it prevents you from opening the breech accidentally. Such as tilting the blaster upwards, for instance, with no spring pressure on the breech can sometimes open it, and you'll end up loading a second dart when you close it again. So I'd keep that function unless for some reason you don't like it. The other lock is a trigger lock. This orange piece below the breech entrance prevents you from pulling the trigger unless the bolt is in the closed forward position. This prevents you from depriming the blaster, and it forces you instead to dry fire it if you happen to close the breech without a dart. To remove the lock, you first have to remove the breech piece, then just undo the screws on the lock to remove it. Burn it with fire or whatever your preference is. With the breech piece reinstalled, the blaster is ready to put back together. Grab the other half of the shell and align the two, clipping in the tabs on the buffer tube and just fastening all the screws again. When you're done, test the blaster and you should now be able to deprime it. One final touch, here's the 16mm Blastertech scar barrel to improve my accuracy, and it's complete. All that's left to do is test its velocity, and then head outside and see whether it's shooting any straighter now. I'll just be cronying with Dart Zone Bamboo darts and then Dart Zone Pro darts. These are the 2 best darts currently available, though sadly you can only get them in the US and Canada at this time. The bamboo darts got an average of 216. And the pro darts got an average of 222. The pro darts had a slightly higher average velocity than the bamboo darts at 222 versus 216. Both were improved by the new barrel I installed though, up from just 200 FPS average before modding. But how's the accuracy now? Let's head on outside and take some shots at a human-sized target at a distance of 30 meters. The pro darts had a nice grouping. Compared to pre-mod, the grouping looks pretty much identical though, it just hit higher up on the target, likely due to that increased velocity. Now let's try the bamboo darts. The bamboo darts also had a nice grouping, and compared to pre-mod, they're actually a tighter grouping now on the horizontal axis. Comparing the modded pro shots against the modded bamboo shots though, it looks like the pro darts had a tighter grouping. But the bamboo darts weren't bad either. Overall, I'd have to say the accuracy is about the same as it was when I simply shoved the worker rifling attachment into the muzzle of the unmodded Nexus Pro. But the increase in velocity from the longer barrel and better seal has improved the range. So is it worth modding the Nexus Pro? Well, I gained 20 FPS from modding mine, which did increase the range of the blaster slightly. If two people were facing off with Nexus Pros and one had the simple mods from the original review and the other one had this one, I highly doubt the upgrades would make any real noticeable difference or give that player any advantage over the other. This Nexus Pro will technically shoot slightly further, but the unmodded one could just as easily shoot further by aiming higher. For most people, I think all we really want to open this up to do is remove the trigger lock. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe and all that stuff. That's all for this one, and I'll see you next time.